was an act of common human kindness to put it out of its misery, like you do with a fatally sick animal. Now we have a Labour government of a sort, and we have to take stock. We should welcome the fact that the new government seems at least to be confronting honestly the damage that has been done to public services over the last dozen years. We should all welcome the promise to restore the rights of workers and their trade unions. At the same time, we should insist that the right to protest, the right to defend yourself and your beliefs honestly in court should also be defended. Our main concern is that none of the positive aims which the new government has stated can be achieved without taking into account the massive and growing inequality between rich and poor. If you want to have an education service which offers the very best to every single young person, you will need to rebuild a lot of crumbling schools, and you will need to pay the school staff, teachers and others enough so that they can afford to live. That will mean taking money off the super rich and spending it in the interests of the majority. We have two particular concerns about the incoming government. They hope to overcome, the first thing is, they hope to overcome the economic stagnation in the country by encouraging the big building companies and the banks, which control those companies, to build masses of homes for sale or rent. To enable this policy, they propose to undermine the planning laws and arrangements which at present give local communities a certain say about what is built and where it is built. Secondly, the first act of the incoming Health Secretary has been to reappoint Lord Darcy to oversee the changes in the National Health Service. Lord Darcy is a renowned and skillful servant, but we in the King George Hospital campaign know him also as the author of the fatal Darcy Plan, under which the Blair government planned to privatise many hospital services. This plan involved removing resources from both hospitals and general practice surgeries and building up a network of polyclinics. The old Darcy plan also involved the beginning of a market in the National Health Service, camouflaged by talk about patient choice. So these are two good reasons why the Save King George Hospital, why the Save King George Hospital and other campaigns, many other campaigns now, on local issues, will need to roll their sleeves up and get to work. Our panel tonight will be it won't be Ashburn Holder, he's sadly ill, of the Liberal Party. Rosemary Warrington will speak for the Green Party. Marwan will be speaking from the Redbridge Community Action Group. Delighted to meet you, Marwan. It's a real pleasure. And Sajid will be speaking as an independent, and Andy, I hope, will be speaking.
I'll be speaking next, if you like, Bob. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start off, shall we, with Rosemary. Oh, and by the way, Glenn, don't forget Glenn. It's fatal to forget Glenn.
Why didn't you?
Hello, I'm the North Forest and Redbridge Green Party election agent for Ilford South and Ilford North. So I'd like to start by thanking everyone who voted Green in those constituencies and elsewhere. Sorry?
Close.
And that much closer. Right. Okay. Yes. Some microphones pick up breathing and it's tricky. That it's brilliant that we've got 4 Green Party MPs who are in a position to put pressure on the government. They are, it's only 4 of them out of so many, they can't outvote anything, but they can draw attention to what the government is doing. They do have a platform and will continually remind everyone that there's maybe only 4 of them, there's only 5 MPs, and that the amount of media coverage that they get should be no more than 25% more than the Greens. The Green Party is committed absolutely to a fully funded, publicly accountable, free at the point of use NHS. We have our manifesto was described as fiscally credible, and we included that there should be a year-on-year reduction in waiting lists, a guaranteed access to NHS dentist, rapid access to a GP on the same day if necessary, and immediate boost to the pay of NHS staff, including restoration of junior doctors' pay to help with staff retention. As one of the problems with the NHS is retaining staff, and that's also an issue in London where there's so much expenses. Our proposals were that we would tax the rich to pay for this, that we want an extra 8 billion in the first year of the government, and rising to 28 billion in total by 2030. They're huge numbers, but tiny compared with spending on defence, on arms. But in Redbridge, that it's a population that's under huge pressure, that the population is increasing, both ageing and also lots and lots of young people. We need a hospital that can serve the community for everyone, and also be a hospital that, and a service that is a good place to work, that workers can organise, that they can have decent pay conditions. That's hugely important. It is absolutely essential that we have social justice now as well as in the future. That is an underlying tenet of the Green Party. We're not just money huggers, we are far more than that.
Thank you very much, Rosemary. Well said, and there'll be no doubt a chance to respond to questions during the discussion. Next, I'll call on Marwan from the Redbridge Community Action Group.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming. First, I'd like to say just a little bit about Redbridge Community Action Group. We were set up after the genocide in Gaza began, with the aim of challenging the MP for Ilford North West Streeting, who is now the Health Secretary. When we looked into West Streeting and we looked into a lot of what was going on, we did realise that there was a lot of issues regarding health in the country, but also regarding West Streeting himself, which I'm not going to go into because I don't think that's the place or the right. I'm here to talk about King George Hospital. I'm going to talk about two personal experiences of my own, of my family. The first one, I would say, is minor, but if you multiply that minor by thousands, it becomes major. So I'm going to talk about, first one is myself. Sorry if that sounds a bit arrogant, whatever you want to call it. Right, first one was I was playing football, dislocated my finger, quite minor on the whole scheme of things, sore, but not the end of the world. I go to King George Hospital, there is a massive, massive queue, okay? I'm not sure am I going to be seen. My wife phones my brother-in-law, asks for advice. He's a doctor in Ireland. What's going to happen? He's like, oh, they'll give you gas and air, they'll do this. Then I'm looking at the screen, we're talking about 6 hours, we're talking about when am I going to be seen for something that, on the whole scheme of things, is quite simple. I eventually are seen by one of the members of staff, and I'm told, right, you're going to need to go to Romford, you're going to need to go to Queen's Hospital for this. Then he goes, but you know what they just need to do? They just need to pull it. That's all they need to do. I go, is it going to be sore? He goes, yeah, it's going to be sore. I'm like, okay, right? He sees the doctor goes, okay, let me just pull it, I'll sort it out. Walk by, oh, that was painful. no gas in there as promised by my brother-in-law, and so it was sore, but life went on. That's minor for me. Okay. Later on, I was told I needed an X-ray. I went somewhere else to get an X-ray in the morning. Not too bad. The next thing I'm going to talk about is 100 times, or 1,000 times, or 1,000,000 times more serious. It was in Ramadan last year. My wife had what's called a severe case of a bulge disc pressing on a critical nerve. Life-threatening. So for 3 days, 4 days, she's lying on the floor in the house, cannot move, in extreme pain. We had booked the appointment, which was not going to be soon. It was going to take quite a while for the appointment. We phoned an ambulance when the pain reached an extreme case. This is pain that my wife described as far worse than child labour. That's what she said. We got the ambulance, giving her the gas, giving her the air, giving her etc. We then go to the hospital. We're looking. My wife had already had a bad experience in King George. Goes, please not King George. We look at the timing. Ambulance staff looked at the timing for King George and for Queen's. For King George, it was quicker, so we went to King George. We arrived there in a stretcher. This is a woman who could not sit down for days. Go there, and it's like, yes, you can't bypass the queue because there's other people there. You can't keep the stretcher that she's on, the ambulance bed. You're going to have to sit down with everyone else. Sit down for a woman who can't sit down. So they were asking her to lie on the floor in King George Hospital. She'd had the painkillers, she'd been drugged up. We made the decision we could not sit down, we could not lie down on a hospital floor for 6 hours. We went home. Then one week later, we had arranged a private appointment. We felt we could not use the NHS because it wasn't going to be a solution. And this is something we've never done before, but we had to look at. Then the attack happens again, the day before our private appointment is due. This time it is life-threatening, to be honest. All the symptoms, everything we were told was that if it reaches this point, and I'm not going to go into details, if this happens, phone an ambulance, it is life-threatening. We then had to be taken to Queen's, and we did. Thankfully she had the operation, everything went to plan. But if you think of the time wasted, you think of the experience in King George, and if you think of this country as one of the richest in the world, it's not good enough. Now, we need extra provision in King George, we need extra provision in Queen's Hospital, and West Street is now in a position of power and an influence, and I really hope that he takes this into consideration on a local level and on a national level. I'd like to thank Andy Walker for inviting me here to speak on behalf of Redbridge Community Action Group, and I just thought that a personal story, this is one personal story, multiply it by thousands across Redbridge, and this is what people are experiencing. So thank you very much.
Is Noah next?
Thank you, everybody. My name is Nur Jahan Begum, and I want to thank everybody for giving up their precious Monday evening to be here to support this campaign. Really, really appreciate you coming here and joining us in this campaign. I was actually thinking on the way here that I'm going to give you some beautiful statistics because I like stats. I do a lot of research. My day job is in health and social care commissioning, and I was going to tell you how the average wait time is 18 weeks for a referral to a hospital, and the average waiting time is now about 18 months. And you know, the average waiting time in A&E is about 12 to 14 hours. But actually I stopped. I thought, no, what I want to do is talk to you about my own personal experiences. Now, some of you will know me and know that I work in health and social care. Pretty much most of my family work in the NHS, some of them as GPs, others as health professionals. Now, the NHS is very close to our heart, not just because we work in the NHS. However pressurised it might be, it's a very rewarding career to be able to support people through the most difficult experiences. I just want to tell you why I feel very, very strongly about this, not just because I'm going to need services at some point or other, but because of the experience that myself and my family have gone through in Redbridge in the last 15 years. People who know us in the neighbourhood will know that my mother was very severely disabled and in a wheelchair for a number of years. She had very bad rheumatoid arthritis. She was a very independent-minded lady and tried to do everything herself. Sadly, she became more and more ill and eventually had heart failure, very many complications, and at the end she had cancer. And in addition to needing lots of care at home and family support, quite often her condition would exacerbate and she would have to go into A&E, into hospital. And this happened 6-7 times a year. And as a family, what we experienced, as many of you may have experienced already, is the running the gauntlet of trying to get an ambulance, trying to get an elderly person to A&E, waiting for hours and hours on end, in a very distressing situation, and seeing health professionals trying their utmost best to get to triage you, to see you, to treat you. And numerous times, as professionals ourselves, we understood the pressures, but we could see our mother, desperate not to go to hospital because it was such a difficult admission. It was such a difficult time in hospital. Many a time she was in a trolley for hours on end. Eventually, in the pandemic, my mother was declared to be end of life, terminally ill. And whilst that was crushing for all of us, we were determined to get her the best care. She had a form of cancer that was very, very painful, and we were determined to get as much care for her as possible so that she could be comfortable. Yes, she was dying, but we wanted her to be comfortable. And this meant that very often she needed hospital care. Twice she was in ICU. She was a fighter. Now, I can't fault any of the doctors, nurses, healthcare workers in these two hospitals who looked after my mother and comforted us and supported us. But what I can tell you is that the experience was traumatic, not just for her, but for us as her caregivers. One of the biggest challenges that we faced was actually getting her discharged in the middle of the pandemic and begging for services, hospital services and social care services to coordinate and bring her home, to make sure she had a hospital bed, make sure she had diamorphine, make sure that she had Macmillan services so that she could be cared for and die at home with dignity. Now, our personal journey was actually very distressing. What I want to see, and the reason why I'm here today, is that other families and those needing care don't have to go through those struggles. I appreciate that this government is trying to make changes, this new government. West Streeting particularly has declared many, many new initiatives, but what I'm here to do as myself, but also as somebody who wants to hold our MPs to account, is to make sure that they do not renege on their promises to invest in public services. As a professional, there are a number of issues that I'll be looking at. I think we need to canvass and campaign to increase capacity in both hospitals, not just King George's. We need to look at the needs of the workforce and increase the workforce. More training places are needed for doctors, midwives, healthcare professionals for our future need. We need to sustain and retain the workforce. Many of my friends and family and neighbours are going abroad to work for health authorities. We need to invest in services, not just move around funds from secondary care to primary care. That's not true investment. We need to look at pay and conditions. Why are people leaving the health service? And we need better discharge facilities, because I know that there are critical incidents happening because people cannot get home. We need social care that allows people to be independent and safe at home. I will be working hard, and I ask you, this is my call to action, to join us in this campaign and to put pressure on those who have the budget strings to make the right choices. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sajida Grada. I've met some people in this room. I'm part of Redbridge Matters, and we had the honour and privilege of selecting Sister Noor Jahan, who had an amazing, I would definitely say, victory, and that was really, really good results for all the hard work that she put in such a short time. Today we stand at a critical conjuncture for King George Hospital in Redbridge, a cornerstone of our community's health and well-being. The pressing need to expand our hospital bed capacity is more evident than ever, and it is an issue that calls for our immediate and collective action. And I myself have been working in the NHS for the last 19 years, and it's just disheartening to see it fall apart. NHS was built for the people, by the people. We're not just staff working in the NHS, the NHS serves us as well, and it is in our best interest to really campaign for the NHS wherever you can, wherever you are. Over the past few years, King George Hospital has seen a significant increase in patient numbers. This rise is not just a statistic, but a reflection of the growing and diverse needs of our community. From the elderly requiring long-term care to the young and vulnerable facing acute health challenges, our hospital is a sanctuary they rely on. Yet, despite the dedication and tireless efforts of our healthcare professionals, the current bed capacity is straining to meet the demand. This situation is not sustainable. Expanding the bed capacity at King George Hospital is not just about adding more beds. It's more than that. It's about enhancing our capability to provide timely, effective and compassionate care. It's about ensuring that no patient is left waiting in a hallway for critical care, that no family has to endure the agony of delayed treatment for their loved ones, and that our healthcare staff can work in an environment that supports their best efforts. The benefits of this expansion are manifold. Firstly, it will significantly reduce waiting times, allowing for faster admission and treatment. This is crucial for emergency cases where every minute counts. Secondly, it will provide our healthcare workers with the resources they need to deliver the highest standard of care, thereby improving patient outcomes. Thirdly, it will accommodate the projected increase in patient numbers, future-proofing our hospital against the growth healthcare demands of our community. Moreover, the expansion will contribute to the local economy by creating jobs and supporting local businesses involved in the construction and maintenance of the new facilities. It will also enhance our community's overall resilience by ensuring that we are better prepared for public health emergencies such as pandemics, which have highlighted the critical importance of having adequate healthcare infrastructure. To achieve this expansion, we must come together as a community. This endeavour will require funding, planning and unwavering support from people like you, from our stakeholders, including government bodies, private sector partners and every single one of us who calls this community home. It is an investment in our future, our health and our shared well-being. Let us not wait for another crisis to remind us of the importance of a robust healthcare system. The time to act is now. By expanding the bed capacity at King George Hospital, we are not just building a stronger hospital, we are building a healthier, more resilient community for generations to come. Thank you.
Paul Andy now.
Do you mind if I say, I'm not really good at mic, just stand forward?
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Right. Okay, thank you very much for coming, everybody. What we're looking at is a failure of democracy. If you walk down the street, any street in Ilford, and you said, should we have more money spent on King George, and you win? You've all heard these terrible stories. They say yes, but it's not working. Our leader is not here. The leader of the council, Redbridge council, is down that one. He's not here. So that's a reflection on our campaign, unfortunately. We haven't done quite as well as what we've done. It's more than last year. Thank you very much to the new people on the panel who brought in more people. But if Jazz knew there were 500 people here, I reckon he would be here. Now, one of the reasons there's so few people interested in local democracy is it's not modernised. You should be able to ask your questions of your ward councillor, but not having to turn up in person. Yes, turn up in person, but also on the net. So you could say, well, how many people are waiting for hip operations? How many people are waiting for knee operations? You don't ask about crime. You could ask about global warming, whatever interested you. But no, it's the exact opposite. Time and time again, I and others go to council, Liz Martins, for example, and Law, and others in this room, we're blocked. They don't want to let us speak. Now, we're doing them a favour, because the more you scrutinise, the more you fall. So really, we're helping them out, but at the minute, they don't see it that way. So the more of us who go to council meetings and campaign, the better. Now, we've heard, you might think, what do you think, oh, there's 30 people in a room, that ain't going to work, is it? It's pie in the sky. Well, you might think that's the case, but the reason I'm here, and I'm sure other people are here, is that when it came to the campaign Saving King George, people were telling us, it's a complete waste of time. You should be doing something else. But we kept on going, and the facts were with us, and we kept it open. The facts are with us on this, but we also need the emotional stories. So we've had some great emotional stories, and that's the real way to win. So it's like more emotional stories about how dreadful care is, and ideas on how we're going to move this campaign forward. But it might come to it, the next local elections, those who work for the hospital need to remind the people in their wards who's been campaigning for the hospital and who hasn't been doing their duties. At the minute, the leader of the council has not written to BHRUT, who control people, when he said, you've got quite a bit. The people are suffering, you've got quite a bit for a new week. I don't care, you're saying you can't find the doctors and nurses, then we've got to find the doctors and nurses. That's the sort of leadership we need at the top, and we're not in there at the moment. So you're going to have a change, you're going to have a chance to change the leadership of this council in less than 2 years, so I'll ask you to think about that too. So thank you very much for coming. It's Glenn, yeah.
So, Glenn.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So, I won't use the microphone. I used to be a teacher. I'd be ashamed if I had to use a microphone from an audience like this. My whole professional training is down here. Right. As we're all starting off with a personal story, I thought I'd start off with something a little bit different. One of those games where you know, the one you see in magazines, spot the difference. Some of you may have seen me talk before. When I last talked, I wore glasses. I had my eyes operated on at West Cross. The surgeon's name was Yang Nung Yeo. Now obviously, as you can tell from his name, he's Irish. Yeah. And he was helped by Salome, who was from Ghana, Hawan, who I think was from the Philippines, and a number of others. And I just thought to myself, yeah, this is the state the country's in. Bloody immigrants coming over here, improving my eyesight. And I thought, right, okay. Now, beginning of the course. July the 5th, he's the Health Secretary. Now, Wes is telling us, right, okay, they ought to work Saturday. Oh, I forgot to tell you, they did my hours on a Saturday. Yeah? Wes is telling us the private healthcare is the way forward. That he's going to use spare capacity. Does Wes know that there are no empty private hospitals? Of course he does. Does he know that private hospitals, private healthcare does not train doctors, does not train nurses? Yes, he knows that. Yeah. Does he know that, say like Marwan, who's got his dislocated finger, well, I must tell you, I need to play rugby with the back on the field. Good stuff. Anyway, does he know that there's no way of it? Of course he does. Does he know there's no ICU? Yeah, he knows that as well. Does he know that private healthcare is gouging £10 million a week profit from the NHS? Money that could actually be put in Marwan's finger back. Yes, he knows that. But is he taking £200,000 of donations from healthcare interests? Yes, he is. Now, heaven forbid that any of us should associate his advocacy of private healthcare with that £200,000. Of course. I ought to be ashamed even thinking. However, we have a little opportunity here. We have a shred of opportunity. And that opportunity is from the work and the campaign of Riyam Mohammed, who got within 528 votes of getting rid of Wes. Now, I would have loved that. I'll tell you that right now. But we were close, but no cigar. But it does give us a little bit of an opportunity. Because having been cocky and confident and thinking he's going to walk it, he's now got the fight of his life. And he is in a position to do something about King George. And if we pressurise him and let him remember that the local population came within that much of getting rid of him, then surely now is the time to persuade him that it is in his own self-interest to help us and for once in his life do what's right. Let's all get together and make it clear to him that it's time to cover. And, as we've said before, convince him that what goes around comes around. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Noel. This is the time to start taking questions and contributions from the body of the meeting. So if you could put your hand up, yes, could you kick off? Would you need the microphone? Yeah, thanks.
I'll be filming everyone unless they don't want to be filmed, by the way.
Thank you. One of the ways that closing the gap for the NHS is obviously immigration. There's also big questions about net brain drain from those countries as they come into the UK, and also immigration in itself isn't probably going to solve the problem. So then that means we need extra doctor spaces in the medical university and that sort of thing. My question is what are your thoughts about long-term sustainable replacement for staff in the NHS?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. Well, we'll take a few questions and see if we've got anything to come back on. There's a hand up over here. Yes. There you go. Thanks.
Hello everyone, my name is Abu. I live in the 7 Kings Ward. I've got a question for the panel. We need to set a date so we can go marching at King George Hospital so they hear our voices. That's my question to the panel.
Yeah. Not for the first time.
Hi there, I'm Ru. I get told off by my wife. I live in Redbridge, I work in Tower Hamlets, and I work in E3. And she's always like telling me, you do all this amazing work, activism, and this and that in Tower Hamlets, your kids are growing up in Redbridge, and you hardly do anything. So that's why one of the reasons, because of her, I'm here. So I don't know if you heard of London Citizens. It's the UK's largest, most powerful civil society movement.
Yeah.
We had a huge assembly in the Central Methodist Church. 1,800 people came, all different backgrounds and religious, faith background, non-faith background, and we had all the three major parties attending, from the Tory, Libs, and Labour. They use a model called community organising, which is extremely powerful. So I'm just wondering if you could maybe have some sort of relationship or partnership with the TELCO, which is the East London Communities Organisation. They are very good at mobilising people and organising people, and I think in this campaign we need to organise people, and more organised people means more power. So the other interesting thing is, across the UK, Citizen UK, they were having these meetings with MP candidates, and they managed to build relationship with 50 of the MPs, current MPs, who are in Parliament now. So it'll be interesting to kind of know how you could liaise or build, or work in partnership with TELCO and one of the TELCO board members. So if you're interested, I'll be more than happy to discuss what we could do there. Thank you. And I'm extremely, I have to say this here, I'm extremely angry. In Islam, I'm a Muslim, we have this concept of neighborhood, and our concept is 40 house radius. So our home isn't just minded with 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom or bungalow stay in good ways. Our concept of home is 40 house radius. So whatever happens, like fly tipping, crime, and this and that, should be our concern. And when I see the development happening on the footprint of home base, the former home base, it's just a massive set on, kind of letdown. It has actually destroyed that entire area where a mountain has been erected, and wherever you go, like, in the back, from our backyard, even though it's about a mile, distance, but it seems like just literally a few meters away. It's so huge. So I'm glad you've organised this meeting, and and one of the things that we are taught in community organising is negotiate and compromise. Like, if we could negotiate and have this new wing in King George Hospital, I think that will be a great victory and win for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
You take 3 at a time.
Sorry? Yeah. Oh, sorry. So now then, Andy, have you got any comments on?
Yes. On the home base issue, I might put out some of these leaflets. We're linking. Quite a few of the people on the platform here have been involved with the. Paul Scott has been a star and handing out some of the leaflets. Yeah.
A few of them. Yeah. Thank you.
We're making the argument, or if we get the money, we want to sue the council and link overdevelopment with the lack of NHS provision. If you build a new town, you've got to have enough GPs, hospital facilities. The London plan is looking at a population increase of about 1 million over 10 years, and the development at Tesco's is part of that. We took them to court over a school being in the wrong location by the high road. I won't go into the detail, but it was a hopeless judgment. But we've got a chance to take them to court again. And we'll be focusing on the NHS. We'll be saying that the National Planning Framework says you've got to take into account the NHS, but it doesn't say exactly what that is. By that, there's no thresholds, there's no benchmarks. There's nothing to say to planning officers, when you go over a certain limit, you can't give permission to these developments because people will suffer as a consequence. So I've been writing for freedom of information requests, and there seems to be no liaison between Redbridge Council and the NHS about all this development that's going on. So that's one way forward. This hall cost £500. The banners, they kept on taking them down, so I kept putting them up. But they were going to threaten me with prosecution, so I thought, between you and me, I thought you were having a laugh, you're not going to really prosecute me. And there was a lovely change of heart this evening. We had a photo shoot outside, didn't we, with the banner. So that just shows you, if enough people turn up, things can change, albeit very small things. So perhaps other people will pick up on the other points, but if you can make a contribution towards, not really the cost of this hall, but towards the campaign, it will be a UK first. It will be saying if you keep building, and Keir Starmer is very keen on building, you've got to provide the doctors and nurses too.
Points to make as well, yes?
Yes, on sustaining, making payments to the NHS staff and making that in a sustainable way. In the Green Party manifesto, we said that the people with the broadest shoulders should pay the most. We suggested a 1% tax on people with a net worth of more than £1 billion. I don't, forgive me if I get it wrong, but I don't think that applies to anybody in this room. And would easily pay for the reinstate the junior doctors' salaries and to both invest in hospitals and in GPs and in community health. We need all three across that. And that would not impact a vast majority of people. And if people say that they're tremendously wealthy and will leave the country, well, evidence in the past where there's been extremely high levels of taxation is that a very few people did, but practically all of them came back. They missed being here. They missed being back for the cricket, for whatever, for their friends, for stuff. People who can live anywhere do choose to live in this country. Very, very few of them. And the ones that do go will be quite glad to see back off. Okay.
Anybody else want to respond? Yes, yes, good.
I just wanted to make a point on investing in staff. Back when I did my training 19 years ago, there was a thing called a bursary. So the nurses were given bursaries, so the tuition was paid, and sometimes they were given a little bit of a maintenance allowance on top. And that really encouraged recruitment of nurses and good quality staff. And over the years, the cutback has reduced the amount of nurses training, allied health professionals training, and then the other staff that are left behind actually paying for the training, which is an extortionate amount as it is. And then when you look at the pay that they get as they start, the beginning pay, especially for doctors, the junior doctors, it's just not worth their time. They get paid way more abroad. So we are losing a lot of staff. We need investment. We need to bring back the bursaries, and we need to invest in the staff so we can retain the staff. There are people there that are ready to be educated, but because the financial gains are not as high as somebody working, say even in retail, then it's just not attracting the right amount of staff. And the staff that we are now getting, they're overworked, they're underpaid, it's just not getting the quality of staff through the doors. So we do really need investment from the day dot, from the training. So hopefully that's something that we can campaign for as well.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to add to what Sajda has just said. I mean, thank you for the questions. About the long-term workforce. Now, I'm just going to be realistic. Look, It takes 6 years to grow a doctor, a homegrown doctor. It takes how many years to have a homegrown midwife? It takes how long to get a home care worker trained and ready to go into people's homes to look after them? Now, I think we have to be realistic about our expectations. Yes, we do need to increase the number of medical college places. Yes, we do need to increase the number of educational places and bursaries and support available to people who want to go into health professions. But in the short term, we need to have a really honest discussion about our country's immigration policy. Now, immigration has been a political football, as has been the NHS in the last few elections. What we need to be saying is that the hostile environment created by the Tory government has to be dismantled. We need to be an attractive place for health professionals. Why is it that my nephew would rather go to Australia to work as a doctor than come to the UK? We need to closely examine how we treat people, how much we expect them to pay in terms of visa fees. We need to be able to have an honest conversation about needing healthcare professionals in the short term. Yes, we can invest in the long term, but hey ho, we need doctors and nurses now, not in 6 years' time. Yes, the population census shows that need is increasing. People are living longer, we're aging, we have more chronic health issues, but actually there needs to be a sustainable plan to meet that need in Redbridge. Andy and I went along to a scrutiny meeting last Thursday, and we realised that the policy committee, development committees, are actually talking about this very issue right now, that the population is set to increase, but actually we don't have the amenities to match that increase. And on top of that, we're planning, 1,280 new flats in Goodmays? So this is the time that we need to hold our representatives, councillors, to account and have an honest conversation. I just want to make one last point about marching about King George's. All of you are here because you feel strongly about this issue. Many a time, Andy and I and others in this room have had meetings, and that's been the end of it. What we want to see is all of you put your name down on a piece of paper and say to yourselves, I'm committing myself to this issue, and I'm going to turn up at every meeting, and if there's a march, I'm going to be on that march. And if I need to write a petition, I'll do that, and I'll write to my MP, not once, many times. I'll hold them to account. I'd like you to commit yourself to that, because it's not just for today. It's actually for our family members, for our colleagues, for our grandchildren. Do you know what I mean? We're not going anywhere. We live in Ilford. We need these basic amenities in place for us to live a healthy lifestyle. The other day, we mentioned that a person who lives in Loxford is going to live 8 years less than the person who lives in Chigwell. Why is that? My work is all about tackling health inequalities, my day job, but I'd like you all to be personally committed to this campaign from this day on. Thank you.
Thanks. More questions, yes.
Hi, good evening. My name is Bishop, so I represent foremost the Council of Mosques in Redbridge. Just a couple of points. So I think West Streeting needs to be challenged on private healthcare. So private hospitals may have brand new buildings and then they have a few nurses. It's the very same consultants, the same anaesthetists, and the same surgeons who work in the NHS who practice in the private healthcare industry. So if you invest there, you're taking that specialism away from the NHS, and you're robbing Peter to play Paul, right? So it needs to be challenged on that. Yes, we've got doctors coming in from abroad, but to give you one brief example, last year my wife fell and broke her wrist. At the X-ray, when they've done the plaster and the review of how it was healing, I had to tell the doctor that it's not healing well, it's out of line, because I saw the X-ray myself. And it was only until the consultant was called, the consultant said she needs pins and she needs to be, had to be reoperated, and the hand is still not 100%. Right? So yes, we may have lots of doctors from abroad, but it's consultant level specialisms that the NHS needs. Doesn't need loads and loads of doctors. The other thing that we need to challenge locally is the tower blocks that are going up. My understanding is that the developers pay a levy for investment in infrastructure. We need to challenge the council as to where that money is going and why that money can't go into building a new wing in King George.
10 minutes left. We've got 5 minutes to go. All right, quick one.
I'd like to say that it's really important that we save King George's Hospital and have a new wing there for the right population. Also, I'd like to add that I'm aware of and I subscribe to a group called Just Space that are a Greater London-wide organisation that are trying to completely change the way we do planning. They, for example, are very much against tower blocks. They argue that in environmental terms it's not advisable to build more than 8 stories high for environmental and fire safety reasons. They're totally committed to socially affordable housing, and also they believe that in any form of planning we should always consider health services. Basically what they should do in Redbridge and all other areas is consider health services, education, affordability in the environment and fire safety before anything else, basically.
Yeah. We've got 5 minutes, so I want to give each speaker a minute to wrap up and to make some concrete proposals. So we start that end and work round. Thanks. 1 minute.
We've heard quite a lot here. There is clearly a problem with King George on a local level, and there is clearly a problem on a national level. We are fortunate, and I say that in inverted commas, that we have the Health Secretary as one of the MPs for this area. And so he has an opportunity to improve the lives of people locally and people nationally. And I think everything that has been mentioned regarding private healthcare, what he's mentioned, a short-term goal, it's not a long-term strategy. There is a crisis, and it might work for the next 2 months, 3 months, putting people in the private healthcare, but it will not work long-term. We need greater investment in doctors. One of the gentlemen mentioned earlier about brain drain. We risk having brain drain of British doctors and doctors from this country, because many of them do see an attractive option elsewhere. We need to stop having doctors going on strikes. And I mean that not that they shouldn't have the right to go on strike, we need to stop giving them reasons to go on strike. That's the same with nurses as well. So we need greater investment, we need to work together, and we cannot continue with the status quo. The government, you have an amazing opportunity to serve this country, and I hope you listen to its residents. Thank you.
I just want to highlight to everyone that this thing about there's no money for the NHS is a complete and utter lie. The amount of misspent money that they spent on PPE that they need to claw back, that they need to do something about, and then there's also misspent money in the NHS as well. We need to look at where the money is going and where it's being spent. So there's certain things like, physicians, associates, they're being invested in, where the doctors are not being paid as well, and they're going on strike. So it needs to be reformed, and we need to step back and actually campaign and say we need to look at the finances and say there needs to be more accountability, and West Streeting cannot get away with getting donations from private healthcare and then running the NHS at the same time. Okay, we cannot let him get away with it. Thank you.
That is one serious job, a serious and long-term, has got to be picked up as a job that's carried through. I agree very much with what you say.
Thank you, Sajda. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Just a lesson that I've learned in the last 6 weeks of campaigning as a candidate in the general election. I want to thank everybody, people who are here and people who are not here, whose names, some of them I don't know very well, who have come on board and worked their socks off to make sure that the message goes out to every individual about a choice. Now, what I would like to say is the last 4 to 6 weeks, look what we got done because we got together. Very often, we are divided by all kinds of issues. And what I would say, this is my call to action to you. We can achieve so much when we get together. I was blown away by the fact that after 4 weeks of campaigning, I managed to secure, and I'm grateful and humbled by the support, nearly 10,000 votes. What I'm saying here is that we need to work together. The gentleman who mentioned all those organisations, Citizens UK and others, we need to work together. We need to set aside our differences and our issues and our quibbles to come together as individuals and as organisations like Redbridge Matters, like Redbridge Community Action Group, like other groups like Tusk, to work together on this issue. And I can tell you something, we are going to make amazing progress. Thank you.
South Siddiqui, who's our candidate in South, works at King George, as I think many of you know, first-hand experience what it's actually like there. And we at the Green Party have a very long track record of holding those in power to account. I've worked on the London Assembly holding the Mayor to account since the creation of that post, and the Mayor has very little power directly over the NHS, but he does have power over community health, and he does have a health inequalities strategy for London. I was looking at it this evening before coming here, and that is something that we can use because people of colour, people in deprived areas are hugely disadvantaged. And that is something that we can use all our leverage. We can use the political leverage that we've got access to in some cases, and the community, bring the community together. We that the future has got to be inclusive of everyone. Thank you.
Time is really short. Quick one, very quick one, Glenn.
Okay. Right, over the next few months, years, whatever, you're going to hear more and more, there's no money, we can't afford it. The 2-child benefit cap, we can't afford to do it. And sadly for you, I'm going to give you a quick economic lesson. And that is, there is a country who has its own currency, tax pays for nothing. If the government wants money, the government creates it. £37 million for track and trace, not a new tax rate. They just create it. Okay, why do we have tax at all then? Because we all know if you pump so much money in, you'll create inflation. So tax is the way that the government takes the money back out of the economy, and whose money it takes through taxation is a political choice. And up to now, they are choosing to take the money of the low-paid and the ordinary people and are setting their faces against taking the money of the rich. But if they tell you there's no money for the benefit cap, there's no money for the health service, there's no money for the problem schools, that's nonsense. They can create that money just as they did for 37 billion for track and trace. Don't let them off the hook.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for coming. The thing about Kilco, great. It's a huge organisation, far bigger than the ones here. So just go for it, sir. That would be brilliant. The bit about the levy, you mentioned the 106, the Tesco one is a disgrace. They was going to have a school on the site. They're now planning a hotel, so they're ripping away or taking away some of the public benefit that the high-rise is going to bring. And finally, the march, there seems to be support for the march, so hold me and others to account and tell us, well, what you're doing, what you're going to do about it. You said you was going to have a new wing, but do something about it. So if you haven't heard by anything by about September, October, give me a call or email me and say, what are you doing about it? And I better do something about it. Okay, so thank you for coming.
Could we ask people that are prepared to be part of the committee to organise that march to put their names forward now? Because I think that would be a wise thing to do.
And lastly, those who can, a quick photo shoot with the banner that wasn't talked about.
For augmenting the campaign.
Okay. Thank you.
And get behind the banner. Yeah.